Hello students, welcome to another session of daily news analysis. Today we will be discussing 5 articles from newspapers. First, in the decoded section we have the Indo-Myanmar relations. In the explained section we have 4 articles for you. First one is the new income tax bill, what it proposes. Second, we have the impeachment of judges, okay, and what is the procedure for that. And third, we have the Volkswagen case, like what's happening on that front. And then we have the medical termination of pregnancy. Okay, so jumping straight to it, we discuss the first topic of the day, which was the Indo-Myanmar relations. So the backdrop of it comes from the new government decision to reopen 22 crossing points out of 43. Okay, so what happened was that after the disturbances started in Manipur, okay, we had closed all the borders. Okay, so now we have slowly started opening up again. So out of 43 which were designated, only 22 have been opened now. So we see we are going back in phases. Okay, so it is important as it comes in GS2, okay, because it's a very important ally and neighbor of India. Okay. So we see why is it important. Okay, we see the context. First, with respect to the PYQs. Okay, so there has been a question which is asked about the Bangladesh-Myanmar maritime border dispute. Okay, it was asked in year 2010, and then in 2022 we had a question on the Sri Lanka crisis. Okay, so it gives us a precedent, like because Myanmar has also seen some turbulence lately, so there can be a question on what is happening on that front. Okay, so that's why Myanmar is important. So starting with it, let's first discuss about the free movement regime. What was it? Okay, and how it came into being. Okay, so last year Ministry of Home Affairs have scrapped it. Okay, citing and ceding to the demands of the of Manipur, okay, because they saw it as a problem. Okay. So later in that front, what they did is that on December 6th, they came up with new guidelines, okay, to regulate the movement of border residents with QR code enabled passes. So we'll see how this particular FMR works. Okay. In the free movement regime, what happens is that it's the agreement between India and Myanmar. Okay, it was first struck in 1968. Okay, started from there. Okay, we had an agreement like, okay, how to improve bilateral relations and people to people movements, okay, and connections. Okay, so according to this, okay, what FMR gives, free movement regime allows, is that for people living from in 16 kilometers from the border on either side can cross the border without a visa or the border using a border pass. They are not issued a visa which has a longer time. Okay, it takes up a lot of time. So they are issued a pass, like you can cross the border taking that pass, and with that pass you can stay up to 2 weeks per visit. Like if you want to go, if the people who live 16 kilometers from the border, if they want to cross over, okay, they can just take a pass and cross over, and they can live there for 2 weeks. Okay, so this was brought into place because there were people of the same ethnic identities on either side of the border. Okay, say they wanted to get connected to their brethren on the other side of the border. So this particular idea was brought in. Okay, so we see, so that was what FMR is. Okay, now we see the larger picture of Indo-Myanmar, what is happening currently and how it has come to this particular point. Okay, so we see Myanmar is our neighbor on the east. Okay, it shares a long border of 1643 kilometers, 1643 kilometers. Okay, across 4 states like Arunachal, Nagaland, Manipur, and Mizoram. Okay, so we have this border problem with Myanmar on a very long border. Okay, so we have we also have a maritime boundary with Bay of Bengal and these 4 states. Okay, so that's why it becomes important. So any problem that, like we see how the problem in Myanmar gets moved over to India. Okay, gets transported to India. Okay. So we see the historical timeline, like because we have been part of the same subcontinent, like it's called Indian subcontinent. Okay, and it did not have a lot of strict borders like the northeast areas. Okay, so we had very close relations. Okay, and it was very difficult to call one from other. Okay, like till 1937, India and Burma, Myanmar's erstwhile name was Burma, was practically the same geographic entity. Okay, the British used to rule, and in 1937, Burma was carved out. Okay, the reason being like there was some significant differences, between culture and people, but more importantly, they did not want the political movement which had gained a strong momentum in India to come over into Burma. Okay, so that was one of the driving factors of the British for this decision. Okay, but it did not work very well because just a year later, in 1948, Burma also got its independence. Okay, and India, because it was a very benevolent neighbor, good neighbor, it established diplomatic relations very soon. Okay, and then in 1951 we had signed a treaty of friendship. Okay, and then in 1962 what happened was that a coup was taken place, like the military administration took over the government there. Okay, the civilian government was dislodged. So this has been a story with lot of countries. Okay, you see in Southeast Asia, you see in Africa, like democracy is a system which pervades, which can work only if the society accepts it. Okay, like democracy cannot be parachuted into a society. Okay, if the democratic ideals are not instilled in a particular people, in a particular society, it will not work for them. Okay, so that's what happened in 1962. A coup happened in Myanmar, and military administration or Janta regime, as it is called, took over. Okay, in 1968 we started a free movement regime. Like I said, as we discussed earlier, it was a time it started because we knew that we had to start relations with our neighbor. Okay, we cannot do without it. In 1991 we had a policy shift, which was look east policy. Okay, India recognized that our eastern neighbors need special attention. Okay, so we, in our neighborhood, in our foreign policy, it became a very important pillar. Okay, in 1994 we tried to expand the relations we had with our neighbor Myanmar. So we had border trade agreement with Myanmar. Okay, and then 2014 this look east policy was promoted to act east policy. Like we were not just looking east and just making plans, we were actually promising things. Okay, and having closer relations with our eastern neighbors through the act east policy. Okay, and in 2014 another policy, neighborhood first policy, also had Myanmar, because it is not just our close neighbor. Okay, it is our it is in our backyard as well. Okay, so both these policies, okay, had something for Myanmar. Okay, next we have 2017 landmark visit by by PM Narendra Modi. So what happened was that in 2016 the Janta regime was voted out of power and it started its democratic experiment. Okay, so to boost that particular thing, Indian PM visited there. Okay, but that democratic experiment led by Aung Suu Kyi did not last very long, because in 2021 we had a military coup again. Military again came back to power. Okay, and so here we are in 2015. Yes, we are finalizing and editing some details of the free movement regime. So we see what are the areas of cooperation. Okay. So we have economic ties. India is the 5th largest trading partner of Myanmar. Okay, the trade bilateral trade is $1.75 billion. Okay, bilateral trade is also conducted under ASEAN India Trade in Goods Agreement. Okay, and India's duty-free tariff preference. Okay, so what happened is that India saw the opportunity. Okay, saw the need to have closer economic relations with ASEAN, because ASEAN as a country, as a bloc, was growing its economic might, economic power. So India being a neighbor, okay, So wanted to have good relations with them. Next, we have defense ties. In that, we have IMBEX, India military bilateral military exercise. It last happened in June 19. Okay, it did not happen after that because in 2020 we had the COVID pandemic, and after 21 there was a junta regime. Okay, we have Operation Sunrise. So here what happened is that because India shares a long boundary with northeast, in the northeast with Myanmar, what happened is that the criminals, say smugglers and people who indulge in cross-border crimes, okay, like gun running or drug trade, what used to happen is that when Indian governments pursued, they would run into Myanmar, and when Myanmar border patrol chases them, they would run into Indian border. Okay, so in Operation Sunrise, what happened was that both the militaries and border forces of India and Myanmar worked together, okay, to eliminate the training camps and the drug networks. Okay, so it was a very successful operation. Okay, and it was not just a single operation. A lot of well coordinated operations were taken against the drug and crime rings which were working in the border areas of India and Myanmar. So disaster and human relief. So India has been very generous whenever our neighborhood calls for aid. So therein in COVID-19 assistance also, Operation Sadbhav, and even when cyclones had hit Myanmar, we were among the first to offer help and assistance. Okay. So development capacity. So India's development assistance Myanmar exceeds 1.75 billion. Okay, in the form of, like, one we have Kaladan multimodal transport project. Okay, so here what happens is that in multimodal transport project, we have the goods will be transported from water, by road and railway. Okay, line of credit. India has also extended line of credit to fund Myanmar's optical fiber links, railway rehabilitation and refinery renovations. So we see India has been a player in the Myanmar development. India has tried to help its neighbor. Okay. Next, we have issues on ongoing challenges. China factor. Okay, let's first address the dragon in the room. Okay, China has been a economic and military power recently. Okay, newly minted, we can say. Okay, so what India used to do is, India used to consider these nations like Myanmar, Maldives, Nepal, Bhutan as India's backyard. Okay, India was the biggest player and we had very close relations. But lately what has happened, because of the Chinese economic and military might, they are coming over to our friends, okay, and offering them better deals than India can, okay, and slowly trying to win them on their side. So when push comes to shove, if they have to choose, if some day comes when they have to choose, they to nudge them in the direction of choosing China. Okay, so India is concerned about the security due to Chinese projects. Okay, like Kyaukphyu port in Myanmar, like this is the port. This is the port which comes under the BRI. Okay, China is developing a port there and then making a road connection there. Okay, in an effort to boost its trade. Like so because of that, if China develops a port here, it will be able to use the Bay of Bengal also as a trading port outpost. Okay, so it comes under the China's BRI scheme. Like India always had issues with BRI. Like even when it was launched, okay, India was there to protest it because it had projects which challenged India's sovereignty. Okay, military coup. India challenged India's balance between strategic interest and democratic values. See, one thing which we must understand is that India is a democratic country, okay, and it would like to propose democracy everywhere. But like democracy, democracy is not just the only way of running a society, of governing a society. There are other ways as well, and we will have to accept it even if we don't agree to it. Like we have relations with, say, Russia and China. They are not exactly very vibrant democracies, but we have relations with them. Okay, so India cannot choose to break ties with a country when any non-democratic government takes over. Okay, like Janta happened here, and say Afghanistan. the Taliban took over. Okay, so the first knee-jerk response was we will break all diplomatic ties, but later, even now, we have started working with them, because even if we don't agree with their ideas and values, they are the legitimate running authority of the state, of the nation of Afghanistan. So we will have to work with them. Same with the Junta regime. We do not like military dictatorships. Okay, it's against our values. But if Myanmar is ruled by dictatorship, military dictatorship, Junta regime, we will have to work with them. Okay, so it's not in India's hand to export ideas, okay, and indulge and interfere in the internal affairs of a country. Okay, like India is, if India is democratic, yeah, India should not interfere in promoting democratic parties or democratic resistances in other countries. Okay, so that's what happening. So after the coup, that in the Niger, India did stop diplomatic relations, but now we are starting with it. Okay. So because of that military regime, okay, what is happening currently is that a lot of forces have come up there, okay, and then they are resisting. It is said that around 40-50 territory of Myanmar is currently not controlled by the regime there. Okay, the rebels have taken over. Okay, so that has caused around 6,000 civilian deaths in the first 20 months since the 2021 coup. Okay, so issues and ongoing challenges. What are the challenges now? Immigration threat, like India shares a very long 1643 kilometers of very porous border. Okay, so it's very difficult to control people if someone wants to come over. Okay, and because of a crisis, so Rohingya crisis, which happened in the Rakhine state, okay, and it displaced around 150,000 people. So what happened is that because you can see in the map, this is India. Okay, and as people here got troubled, they started moving towards India, and it became a crisis for Bangladesh and India, because a lot of people filtered into Bangladesh and into India. So around 40,000 refugees had come to India and are currently living in slums. Okay, so Rohingya is a major point of tussle between India and Myanmar. Okay, because it's very difficult now for us to identify them and send them back, because it will be very difficult to establish the identity. Okay. Next, weak trade relations. Even though we have a lot of bonhomie, good relations, okay, that does not translate well into the economic aspect. Okay, because the bilateral trade last year was only 1.75 billion. As I said, this was around the same amount that India gave as grants and funds to Myanmar. Okay, so we need to boost these numbers. So what are the way forward? Okay, one important idea in this Rakhine state Rohingya crisis was Kofi Annan Commission. What happened is that government, this Kofi Annan Institute, Kofi Annan Foundation worked with the government to have a very detailed report on what went wrong and how it can be improved, how the situation can be improved on the ground. So it's a great document. That it's a document, you can download it on the internet and you can mine it for a lot of ideas, like, because it is the very few documents where the government of or legitimate government has worked with an independent agency to look into the issues and try to resolve them. Okay, so the ideas, the reform suggested, the recommendations here, you can use for any issue, like Sri Lanka, after Sri Lanka, there was an issue. Okay, so like Pakistan also is having a number of issues. So you can use the ideas for economic improvement given in this particular report to extrapolate to other areas. Okay, it's a very great place to generate good ideas. Okay, and come up with good ideas. Okay, India needs to boost trade. Like I said, the trade is very small, $1.75 billion. Okay, for context, India just imported $101 billion worth of crude oil. Okay, so it's a very small number when you talk about the international trade. Okay, you need to explore economic opportunities more. Okay, collaborate on border security. Like I said, we had this Operation Sunrise, so we need to have more of such operations so that the criminal networks which use porous borders, okay, can be curbed. Okay, one idea is the Buddhist circuit, like it was proposed for ASEAN. Okay, Myanmar is also part of ASEAN. Okay, so what happens is that in ASEAN, almost all the ASEAN nations, Buddhism is a major religion. Okay, and India has been the birth of Buddhism. So what Indian government has done, it has made a tourist circuit which covers all the important Buddhist locations or pilgrimages and promotes that as a package to ASEAN countries. People from there come over for these Buddhist circuits. It increases our bilateral trade, okay, and increases people to people connections. Okay, border heart. This is one idea we have been doing with Bangladesh. Okay, what happens here is that people living in border, okay, because they almost share the same ethnicity, okay, they are very close in people to people connection. So what happens is that in border, for the area, like in FMR, people from 16 kilometers away can come over, cross the border into the neighboring nation. Okay, what happens here is that you don't need border and passes, you just need the pass to enter this border area where the market is established. Okay, what happens here is that people from say Myanmar and India can exchange goods and services in this particular area, in this heart. Okay, so India does that with Bangladesh. We have approved a lot of border hearts with Bangladesh. We can export this idea with Myanmar as well. Okay, so this will boost our trade, the number of value of trade, and also boost people to people connections. Okay. So here's a practice question for you. Examine the impact of the revised free movement regime on border security and people to people ties between India and Myanmar. Okay. Discuss the strategic importance of India-Myanmar border for India's security and connectivity in the northeast. You try to attempt this question as well. So we come to the next article. Next article is the new income tax bill. Okay, as promised, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman gave new changes in the income tax bill. Okay, the first very important change which has been discussed is the new tax brackets that we had for this year. Okay, like people who earning less than 12 lakhs per annum are not viable for taxation as of now. Okay, but apart from that, she also proposed a new income tax bill which will bring in a lot of changes. Okay, so we'll see what are those. Okay, the income tax bill has been presented. Okay, so the changes proposed are qualitative improvements like simplified language. The current bill is 24% shorter. Okay, earlier bill had 823 pages and the present bill which is being made is 622 pages long. Okay, then consolidation of amendments, a lot of amendments, okay, which have been redundant, okay, have been erased, have been gotten rid of. Okay, so we have a more sleek document. Okay, next, removal of obsolete redundant things. Okay, like all provisions and explanations have been removed. Okay, like we had in the constitution, if you have PM Bakshi in your home, you can see that after every article there is a long explanation. Okay, that is also the case with all the laws and even some judgments. Okay, so this extra fluff has been gotten rid of. Okay, like 1200 provisos and 900 explanations. So this is the extra volume which has been cut down. Okay, structural rationalization through tables and formulae, like to reduce the verbosity. Okay, more tables and formulae have been introduced to make it more friendly for the taxpayers. Like many of you have already paid tax, but very few of you might actually have seen the bill. Okay, unless someone is working actively in taxation like CAs and all, only they know what the bill is written. Okay, but now the idea is that people who pay tax should have an idea and have first-hand knowledge of what's there in the tax bill. Okay, so they are cutting out all the fluff or the very technical jargons. Okay, preservation of existing taxation principles, like all the principles are same here. Okay, so conceptual changes. One important thing is they have come with a concept of tax year. Okay, so we had a lot of terms in the income tax file, if you have ever filed. Okay, annual year. Okay, so assessment year. So now they have brought a term tax year, which is 12-month period beginning April 1st, like April 1st to 31st March, it will be a tax year. Next, we have crypto as a property. So crypto is going to be recognized as a capital asset. Okay, virtual digital assets such as crypto have been included in the definition of property to be counted as capital asset. Okay, there is no change in scope for virtual digital assets. Okay, and expanded definition of income to include evolving income sources, like even income from the cryptocurrency market, okay, will be counted as income. And earlier it was kind of gray area. Okay, so you were not very clear how much you have to pay tax on that. Okay, but now it has been settled, it has been clarified. Okay, implementation and roadmap. Okay, it will come into effect on 1st April 2026. Okay, so whatever changes they are bringing will not come into effect this year, it will come only next year. Okay, and as of now the current status of the bill is that it has been sent to the parliamentary committee, okay, for detailed examination and suggestions. Okay, so and with the announcement, okay, of this bill, okay, when this bill was shown, okay, there were a few criticisms, like it lacks significant changes in penalty or compliance frameworks, like the compliances have not been changed, like the tax bracket has been shifted, but the process of compliance, okay, the payment of taxes, the timeline, the duration has been kept same. Okay, it lacks major structural reforms. Yes, that is a problem, because we were promised a lot of reforms in that, but this particular tax bill was not up to the mark, was not up to what people might have been expecting from the repeated announcements of big changes coming to our way. Okay, so that was about the income tax bill. Here's a prelims question, objective question on this particular bill. You can attempt it. Next we have impeachment of judges. So it has come in news because there have been calls for removal of a certain judge of a high court. Okay, so we see what is happening on that side. Okay, it pertains to the Indian Pertinent Constitution part of GS2. Okay, about the news, 55 opposition Rajya Sabha MPs had submitted a notice under Article 124(4). Okay, to that article. So when the members are propose the impeachment, okay, they have to come bring a notice in front of the chairman of the house, okay, and they will have to accept it or deny, and that's the discretionary power the house speaker has, chairman of the house has. Okay, so the current Rajya Sabha chairman Jagdish Dhankar, okay, has said constitutionally it lies in exclusivity with the chairman of Rajya Sabha and in an eventuality with the parliament and the president. Okay, so we see the procedure, the constitutional articles, what the constitution says about the impeachment. Okay, Article 218, okay, it says the same provisions shall apply in the judges of High Court as well. Like this article is specifically for Supreme Court judges, but the same procedure will be applied to High Court judges. Okay, Article 124(4) and 218, okay, has the provision for removal of Supreme Court judges and High Court judges respectively. Okay, for Supreme Court it's 124(4) and for High Court judges it is 218. Okay, so the criteria for removal is proved misbehavior or incapacity. Okay, next like this is the constitutional provision. To give effect to that particular provision, government has made an act. Okay, Judges Inquiry Act. Like the constitution does not give powers to executive. Okay, it gives powers to executive to make an act through which they can do. Like government said there should be abolition of untouchability. The constitution said. Okay, so but for that government had to make an act. Okay, so that is the actual constitution at work. Okay, so Judges Inquiry Act 1968 regulates the procedures for removing Supreme Court judge and High Court judge. So we will see what the procedure actually is. Okay, the procedure starts with removal motion. Like currently motion was passed by 55 members of Rajya Sabha. For Rajya Sabha it is 50 members. For Lok Sabha it is 100 members. Okay, then after it is approved and accepted by the chairman of the house, it goes to the 3-member committee which investigates like if the charges labeled are actually true or not. Okay, and next, if that is found to be true, on the report submitted by this 3-member committee, it is brought to vote in the first house of parliament. Like there has been given a flexibility, like either house of the parliament, Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, can start the process. Okay, so in the first house it has to pass with a special majority, and so similar is the case with next house. So if it starts in Rajya Sabha, that currently the proceeding is in Rajya Sabha, if Rajya Sabha passes with a special majority, it will have to go to Lok Sabha, and there also it will have to pass by special majority. Okay, and then when both houses have consented, it will go to the president, and he will issue order for removal of the judge. One thing to know is that no judge has ever been impeached in India as of now. So we will see if this case happens to be the first case. Okay, so this is a question on removal of judges. Next, the Volkswagen case. So what happened is that Volkswagen, a German company, has been sent notice for $1.4 billion. Okay, so we will see what the issue is about. Okay, so India demanded 1.4 billion in back taxes from Volkswagen after 12 years of scrutiny. Okay, next, so it because of this, a lot of issues came up, like lengthy tax investigations and litigation, okay, affecting foreign investment. And it's not a one-off case, because other companies of similar sector, of automotive sector, have been struck by this particular decision. Okay, like Maruti Suzuki, Hyundai, Honda, Toyota, almost all the major MNCs in automotive sector have been issued notices collectively of about $6 billion. So we'll see what the exact dispute is about. Okay, allegation. So it is the government said that Volkswagen company avoided higher custom duties on fully assembled units. So what happens is that when you import spares, okay, the taxes are 5 to 15%. Okay, but when you import full cars in knockdown units, the taxes are 30 to 35%. Okay, in complete knockdown units. So government is saying, like Volkswagen, you imported completely knockdown units, full cars, but passed them off as spare parts. So now you have already paid 5 to 15% of tax, import duty, but now you should pay the difference. Like earlier it was 15%, now it should have been 35%. So you have to pay the difference now. So that is the issue, and government and the Volkswagen company is resisting. They are saying that they were due to Indian bureaucracy's inaction and tardiness. Like they said, this case has been running, investigation has been running for say 12 years. If in 12 years you would have let us know that this is how you are counting spares and knockdown units, we would have accounted it appropriately from the next cycle. But you did not do that. You just come now and say from 12 years you were doing this. Okay, so this is a problem. Okay, they say the fault is not ours but on your side. Next, we have argues that a quicker review would have allowed for a timely challenge or adjustment of import strategies. They said, yes, had you told us about this say 10 years ago, because you have been knowing it for 12 years, you have been investigating it. Okay, so had you told us 10 years ago, we would have challenged it in that time, or changed our policies, brought changes at our end. Okay, so that is a problem that you have. Okay, and if you had told us in time, this import bill, the extra bill, will not have been like 1.4 billion now, it would have been a few $1 million. Okay, so that's the issue. Says the delayed notice affects investor confidence in India. That is a very important argument where Volkswagen is saying, is that if you do these things post after so many years, okay, so retrospectively, okay, then the investor confidence in India as a country will come down, and India as an economy will come down. Okay, like it also happened with the Vodafone case. Okay, Vodafone case. Okay, next, impact on foreign investment raised fears about stability of India as a favorable investment destination. Like FDI will not come to India if there is a lot of volatility and a lot of policy flip-flops. Like you are inviting foreign car makers, but if you tell them retrospectively after 10 years that you were importing things in a wrong manner, then we can approve, so you have to pay more. It sends a very wrong message regarding Indian economy in the foreign markets. Okay, investors are worried about long-standing disputes resurfacing of years of dormancy. Like here also, it has been being investigated for say 12 years now. Okay, concerns that tax disputes can deter foreign companies from heavy investment in India. Like I said, it erodes India's position as a favorable destination for FDI. Okay. So way ahead, one way ahead is amnesty scheme. Amnesty scheme means the government can say, okay, you have been wrong, but we will let you go this time, because the government is also at fault here, because they have been dragging its feet on the decision. Okay, had they told about it 10 years ago, the import bill, the tax bill would not have been mounted so much. Okay, so yes, the government should accept that its process was at fault. Okay, the so lengthy review was not a best thing to do, so it can grant amnesty. They can say, okay, is bar we can let it go, but you change your strategies to match our policies. Okay, next, tribunal demand. Okay, India's appeal tribunal for customs excise and service tax has faced a backlog of 80,000 cases. Okay, so that is the problem. These issues don't get resolved because all our tribunals are choked. So we should work on these structural improvements, okay, and not come down heavily on a particular company. So we'll see what happens in this case. They will definitely appeal it in the Supreme Court. Okay, we'll see. Next is a particular question about objective question from this topic. Next we have medical termination of pregnancy. What happens is that in the news is that Bombay High Court permits women to terminate 25-week pregnancy at private hospital despite 24 weeks bar. Okay, so we will see why there is a bar for 24 weeks. Okay, it talks about the relevance is from GS2 paper, governance policies and interventions. Okay, so context, the court granted the relief citing utmost urgency, like the pregnancy was already 25 weeks. Okay, so that was quite urgent, and the court noted that conscious of the right of the petitioner to reproductive freedom, her autonomy of her body and her right to choice. Okay, so it's a major debate in say US. Okay, this right to pregnancy, right to bodily autonomy is a major political and cultural issue in US, but India, luckily, we don't attach a lot of emotions to this particular topic, this particular logic issue, and we say yes, women have right to pregnancy, a right to abortion when they want. Okay, and when even after the safe limit, if there is medical advice to do so for the safety of the mother, it should be allowed. So we'll see the Pregnancy Act, Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 2021. Okay, it extended gestation period limit. Okay, earlier act was 1971. It was amended in 2021. It was long due. It was 50 years later. Okay, up to 20 weeks, anyone can get a pregnancy on account of failed contraception. Okay, between 20 and 24. Okay, permitted for certain categories of women. Yes, it is still permitted till 24 weeks. 24 weeks is 6 months. Okay, beyond 24 weeks, you have to approach the state. Okay, state or UT medical board determines termination in cases of substantial fetal abnormalities. After 24 weeks, if you want to have a termination of pregnancy, you will have to approach the state. They will make a board of doctors who will examine you and recommend how to go about it. Okay, if they say no, this pregnancy is a threat to life of the mother, then you will be allowed to do that. Okay, so it also brought the privacy clause, like you need not, if say before up to 20 weeks, okay, if someone wants a pregnancy, they will have full safety and privacy. Okay, this act helps in that. Okay, so we have a practice question on this particular act. Okay, so go through it. So these were the topics for the day. We discussed 5 topics. Follow us for more such videos. Thank you.